Hey, what is up, everyone? It's time to finally talk about my thoughts on the Forsaken Hunter adventure in Sea of Thieves and where I think this story is going to take us throughout Season 7. So, to start off, this is definitely, in my opinion, the best adventure we've had in Sea of Thieves so far, in terms of both lore, gameplay, and in general other stuff that I'm going to talk about in a second. All around, this seems to be the best adventure that we've had so far. So first, one of the criticisms I've had of previous adventures, especially the first adventure we had, along with the third adventure we had where we had to summon the different megalodons and stuff, both of those took really long, and you were sailing all across the map going super far distances, which kind of just artificially extended the amount of time that you're doing the adventure, and I didn't like that because I felt like it was longer than it needed to be. This one, I think, does really good at not making it feel like that. The only time I felt like it's kind of annoying that I have to sail all the way to this place and then all the way to something else is when I spawned a Daggertooth outpost, had to sail all the way down to Stephen Spoils to start the adventure, then had to sail all the way back up to the Uncharted Island to go talk to Belle. So it kind of just felt like an extra step that didn't need to happen, but I did really appreciate that most of this adventure was contained within the Shores of Plenty. So we go to the Uncharted Island, then to Wanderer's Refuge, then to two highlands up north, which they were pretty far, to be honest, a little bit further than I wish, but it wasn't that bad. So we were traveling to a bunch of different islands in the Shores of Plenty, and it made it not feel too long, and I felt like where we were going, it made sense with the storyline, and also it wasn't so far out of the way. We weren't traveling across the entire map over and over again, which I've had complaints about with other adventures. So that was a good one for me. So this adventure did not take too long. It took about an hour and 45 minutes, so I think ideally it'd probably be closer to an hour 30 in my opinion, but an hour 45 is not bad. As long as it's under 2 hours, because I think once you get past 2 hours, it's too long. And this also included me spending the time looking for the journals and stuff and reading through them, so that all adds a little bit more time than it would be for me to just complete the adventure normally. So in terms of the distance that we have to sail, so like basically non-playing time, if you want to call it that, because like while you're sailing, you're not really playing the adventure, you're just kind of taking a pause and waiting to get to the next location. In terms of that, plus how long the adventure took, I think both parts of those did really good. Now let's take a look at the actual adventure itself, and I think this one was outstanding on the lore aspect. I loved everything we learned about in this adventure, and I felt like this story was more compelling than anything we've had previously. I think the previous adventure we had with Lost Sands was compelling in a different way. It was compelling to see like what the community chose, but in terms of story, honestly, like either side of that fight, I didn't really have an interest of what was going to happen too much, other than for future content wise. But in terms of lore, it just wasn't really there. Neither side really had clear motivations for why they want to save or destroy Golden Sands Outpost. So I was never too invested with that one. Whereas this, I find Merrick being kidnapped and we have to like save him before he reveals information and that kind of stuff. That's a lot more compelling to me. So the adventure starts off with us finding out about Merrick being murdered, and then we're sent off to Wanderer's Refuge, and we track the assassin throughout her journey through using Belle's lantern, which is similar to stuff we've done with previous Tall Tales, with like the Seabound Soul, I think was one that we did that with. And I really like this feature. I hope that they don't keep doing this, because I was fine with them doing like the lantern thing here. I thought that was very fun and stuff, but I could definitely see that being overplayed in the future if, say, the next adventure were to use it again and we were following more clues and stuff. I'll talk towards the end of the video what I think is going to come next. But moving on, we got to see in Wanda's hideout again, which I talked about in the video about the Masked Stranger, who's also known as Wanda. If you're interested in more of her history, you can definitely check that video out. But going into Wanda's hideout, it was the first time that I had been in there in several years. So it was nice to go back in there and check it out again. There's some cool little details and stuff. After you open the door inside the hideout, there's this book that goes over some of like the history and lore of her relationship to Flameheart and Stitcher Jim. So I found that all very interesting. I would definitely recommend checking that out if you didn't. But moving on, we see the assassin talking to the masked stranger, and this is really where I got interested in the plot. I felt like this was a lot more cinematic, whereas like the story felt very clear to me what was going on. I was not confused. It didn't feel like I was having to read a bunch of journals and stuff to understand what the story was. It was all pretty straightforward in my mind, which I think is really good in terms of like getting people invested in what's going on. Because previously in Sea of Thieves, prior to the adventures, and with exception to the Pirate Slave Tall Tales, I felt like the storyline in Sea of Thieves was very confusing and was hidden within like different journals and stuff online or outside of the game, like through books and stuff. And for me, I prefer my story to be like either little dialogue, cutscenes, or whatever. So I really did appreciate this adventure for that. Moving on, I thought that this adventure wasn't too difficult in terms of like difficulty level. We can talk about that. I thought I understood pretty much where to go for everything. The clues and riddles were not too confusing in my mind. It was pretty easy for me to pick up on like what islands to go to and that kind of stuff. So that was all great in my opinion. I really enjoyed seeing how the plot developed over time, going to the different islands and then having the ambush. So we saw like them get the trident, and then they got the gold hoarder skull, and then they combined the two using, I think her name's Olga. She's one of the Order of Souls representatives from Golden Sands Outpost. That was all really interesting to see. And I think that staff that they made is a really cool addition. And it feels like a natural progression in the story. So previously the things that they'd done was the ghost ships and the sea forts and other stuff that would weaken the barrier between the Sea of the Damned and the living world. And now that they're able to freely travel between both worlds, I think that's very exciting from a story perspective, because that will allow even more interesting stuff to happen in the future. We don't need a huge content update to come just for the story to progress. I thought the ending of the adventure, while we weren't really doing much, it felt really cool just to kind of have like, it's almost like a cutscene that you can walk around with and take different angles and look at it. You're basically the camera during the cutscene, and you can just see if you want to take a focus on Belle at the end, or if you want to take a focus on the assassin. That was all really cool. I love the visual effect when we see Merrick being held captive by Duke and the Masked Stranger. That was all really great. I thought that really made me enjoy this adventure the most. I feel like that ending was really good. I would say in terms of the gameplay wise, this adventure is a bit lacking. It's mostly like an investigation adventure. So I'm hoping the next adventure is a bit more interactive, because I feel like this one is more of like us observing and collecting clues, which was all really fun. No complaints about that. I just hope that the next adventure kind of builds off what we found and is more action heavy. So let's go ahead and move on to my thoughts about this adventure and how it fits into the next few adventures that's going to come out. So we knew starting this adventure that this was going to be the next like arc of a storyline. The developers had previously said that each adventure is going to have a 3 adventure arc for the story, and they said that Lost Sands was the finale of the previous arc. So now we're on a new storyline basically. It's still continuing off of what happened before, but it's kind of changing direction with this one. And I think it's really exciting. So what I highly expect, this was supposed to be the first adventure of Season 7. I feel like Season 7 is going to be mainly focused around Merrick and trying to save him, similar to how Season 6 was focused on saving Golden Sands Outpost. So this first adventure was us just getting like the clues and trying to piece together what happened and stuff. I think the next adventure is going to be us going into the Sea of the Damned and trying to track down Merrick and try to rescue him and stuff. I don't think we'll be successful in that, but I think we'll get the trident and we'll steal it back from the Dark Brethren. And then I think the third adventure from now, so not the next adventure, but the adventure after that, we'll be able to finally rescue Merrick. And I think that would be the finale to this story arc. I think that would be really interesting. I'm curious though, they might stretch it out because Season 7 got delayed. They might try to stretch it out so that they finish the season with Merrick being rescued and have like a side adventure in somewhere in the middle. I could see them doing that, but also I feel like that would take too much time to implement, so they might just not do that and they'll just continue the story along despite it not lining up with the season release schedule. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing that season 7 got delayed. I think this would have been a really great start for the season, but either way, it's going to be great going into season 7 and having the next part of this storyline continue. So one other thing that we should talk about is the rewards you get for this adventure, and this is probably the weakest point of the whole adventure experience to me, because usually the reward is something that I'm looking forward to, and I was really looking forward to when I saw this was going to be an emote. But then when I actually unlocked the emote and I found out that it's basically just a copy of the Mask of Union emote, but this one is the Mask of Deceit, which is the one for the assassin that was in this adventure. It makes sense with the story and stuff, and it makes sense as a reward, but it was kind of disappointing to get an emote that's basically identical to one that I already have. Something that annoys me with both of these emotes is that it cuts off like the nose area of the mask for me, and you can see like my character's nose sticking out through the mask, and that's really annoying to me. I wish they would fix that. I don't know if it's a big enough problem that they would go and fix it, but seeing as there's no way I can do it myself, it is kind of annoying to see. The title, Investigator of Dark Intrigue, is a pretty cool title. There's not much to say about it. I think getting the titles is great for the adventures, but it's never something that I'm like super excited to get, if that makes sense. I usually just keep the same few titles that I like to use that sound really cool, but I think these titles are nice to get during the adventures because they're limited time, which means they could be rare in the future. It takes a little bit more effort to unlock these titles, so there is some benefit to having a title each adventure. But those are really all my thoughts on this adventure. In general, I think this is the best adventure that we had so far. I'm really excited to see what this takes us next. I think the next adventure is probably going to be even better because we'll be going into the Sea of the Damned again, I think. And we'll be doing stuff there rather than just going to islands that we've already been to. I feel like the Sea of the Damned is, while we've been exploring it a bit more within the last few years, there's still so much that we haven't seen yet, and there's so much that they could do there. But those are all my thoughts on this adventure. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you hit the like and subscribe. Definitely check out some of the other videos we have on the channel. I think y'all will enjoy it. But until next time, thanks for watching. I'll see y'all later. Bye y'all.